he sells a dream. You want to be that woman in that glorious house or on that glorious beach in that incredible dress.
Mario gives them a heightened, more beautiful version of reality.
Mario's pictures are very hedonistic. They're about having a great time. They're about not being ashamed of being rich or being famous or being a little bit excessive, and really a celebration of that, a celebration of life.
He's very good at doing young, sexy, vibrant pictures.
Is there anybody left that he hasn't photographed?
I think he can see like beauty in everyone.
He seems to function on the pleasure principle, and there's something bewitching and irresistible about that.
Mario Testino is one of the most sought-after photographers in the world, from fine art to fashion, from Hollywood to Buckingham Palace. His images fill today's glossy upmarket magazines.
It's okay, I'm just doing to see composition, Max. Don't worry, you're gonna be working. It's not a holiday. Just so that you see what I've been doing, so that it's not like a pose, but backstage, it's a party, and I just happen to be invited and I get a glimpse. Exactly, it's incredible.
Often watching Mario, look through a camera, he'll move things around that when you're standing in the room you think, why is he doing that? And then you look from his vantage point at what he's constructed, and he's absolutely right. And the images are more beautiful reduced to 2 dimensions than they are even in 3 dimensions.
He has a journalist's sort of mind and enthusiasm, but a sort of painter's eye. As a result, his pictures are not static. They are lively. They're very much alive, and they feel like, in some ways, a reportage rather than simple portrait photography.
Perfect, and Jonathan as well. Yes, make it alive in the background, exactly. That's perfect. Okay, go, no!
I just said to him, Mario, I have some problem with my face. Just, bigger nose, bigger ear. And he said to me, don't worry, you will be fantastic. When I saw my picture, I couldn't believe that it's me. It was amazing. And thank you so much.
I have this thing about photography. I think the most successful photographs, at the end of the day, the magic of photography is that you could capture in an 1,000th of a second something that won't exist before and won't exist afterwards. That if you don't get it then, it's gone. Yeah, love that. That's brilliant. Wow, incredible.
Pictures of Diana were the most famous pictures ever taken of her. And after they ran in Vanity Fair, they probably ran in every magazine on Earth. And in a sad way, that's probably the shoot that made him famous.
I had this sofa made, and I said to her, would you please sit down? Because I wanted to create something relaxed, and I thought a sofa is a thing that you slouch on rather than sit upright. And she went and sat properly with, the idea of a princess with her knees together in her hands on her lap. And I said, my God, you sit like that as a normal thing? Because I usually sit like this, and I just threw myself on the sofa. And from that moment on, we could just relate. original idea to do her was to do her with a tiara and, you know, the classic images that you've seen. But at the end I thought, really, what am I interested in? Am I interested in seeing another picture of her as a royal person, or am I interested in knowing her and what she's about? And that's why I decided to do her without jewels, without shoes, without all the trimmings.
They managed to have an extraordinary sense of intimacy without being in the least intrusive. You feel looking at those that if Diana were your friend, that's the Diana that you'd know, the sort of bubbly and full of life and also supremely elegant.
Having seen that sort of transformative process happen to someone so photographed and whose image is so sort of resonant, I think every celebrity has kind of wanted to be memorialized by Mario.
Mario's best pictures are just Mario, the subject, and his camera.
I always just feel immediately at ease in his hands, and like that we're not only looking for a good picture, but we're looking for a good moment and something that we'll remember. What I love about his pictures is that they're always so fresh looking without attempting to be anything. I always feel like when I look at any of his pictures that I'm sort of being led in on something. He took my father's all-time favorite picture of me, which is the cover of British Vogue that I did when I had little short blonde hair and a big smile. My dad thinks that's the best picture of me ever taken.
We're all human, so you choose a photographer that's going to make you look good. Get rid of the second chin, slim the waist down a bit, smooth out the skin, you know, peel off the wrinkles. And Mario's good at like relieving that pressure. And as a result, the people think they can relax more, and they do wind up looking better.
He takes a lot of delight in what he does. I don't know how long he's been doing this, but I think he makes it feel like it's his first day. He's that excited, which is really nice. I mean, I'm not a model, so I haven't worked with that many photographers, but it's been a lot of fun. He's very mischievous and he's very reassuring. He seems to catch natural light, which gives, you know, the creature, me, whoever, a lot of freedom.
One of Mario's great strengths is that he wants people to look fabulous, and therefore he is so much in demand by the extremely difficult world of Hollywood and others. He may not always be taking the portrait that you'll remember for 100 years, but I think he captures the person at their best, and that's a great art in itself.
Photographers, we're obsessed with our signature being on an image, you know. Does it look like my photograph, or does it look like Bruce Weber's photographs, or, I don't know, Peter Lindbergh's photograph, or Steven Meisel photograph? I wanted to look like a Mario Testino photograph. I'm not interested in it looking like anybody else. And I realized that it is what I get out of the person that makes it my picture more than anything. You know, it's not the light or the location, really. It's one is the idea, and two is what the people will give to you that they will not give to somebody else. You know, there's a limit to what I can do, you know, I'm not a magician, so I have to work with something that I already find attractive or that I can make look attractive. You know, it's very limited the time we have with these sort of sittings. It's not like we get 3 days to decide what look we're gonna give them. It's all in one day. You have to get to know the person, find how she looks the most beautiful with the makeup, find how she looks the most beautiful with the hair, find clothes that make her, you know, it's a lot in a day. So obviously sometimes I do fuck up, you know.
I would say that he's maybe done one shoot that I wasn't 100% pleased with. I was like 95% pleased. Keanu Reeves, I think, was probably one of the ones where it didn't turn out exactly the way he planned, and it may have something to do with the chemistry between the two people, and that will happen it can happen on any shoot.
We did such a good cover for this that Graydon didn't like. Much better than that, much. But I'm not the editor. It got 6 pages. Usually they give them 16 pages, 2, 4, 6. Let's see.
Go, 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 go.
Testino arrived in London at the end of the 1970s. It was a startling shift from his native Peru.
When I arrived here and I was coming from the airport in the bus, I just thought this is where I'm gonna spend my life. There was a feeling of people being able to be themselves, or, you know, whatever you are, you can be, you live your own life. I would see people walking down the street with the most extravagant looks that in Peru, if you went out like that, people would probably scream.
In those days, it was a very decadent world. When I first met him, he lived in a squat in Lambeth. He was always the exotic other, and very decadent, and a part of sort of bohemian London.
I met so many people, and at the time there was a club called Monkberries, which was the club. It was a bit more alternative, and it was a lot of fun. I was in Seventh Heaven going to those places, you know, where everybody was dressed up. That's why I came looking for in England freedom, to be me, to be able to walk down the street, and if I want to wear platform shoes and a crown in my head, I could.
Testino had already begun hawking his photographs around the style magazines, but with little success.
Mario wasn't always as in fashion as he is at the moment. In fact, when I worked at Vogue, he came in all the time to try and convince people that he was, you know, the face of the late 1980s. They would dive behind the rows of clothes, hissing, "Tell me when he's gone."
Mario's work at that period, I think, was very mannered and rather contrived and staged and sort of elaborately conceived and executed. It was about decorating women and dressing them up in a way, and it certainly wasn't about a sort of fundamentally sexy aesthetic.
The person had to stay still for him to work the camera. I mean, I don't want to be rude, but the point is that he hadn't really been trained as a photographer.
For 13 years I worked with daylight, and I could not imagine doing anything that wasn't with daylight, and that limited me enormously, especially in London. You know, very little daylight, which means no speed in your film, so you have to shoot at very slow exposures, which means that people can move.
You had to get all your photography done by 3 o'clock because he couldn't work in the dark, because he didn't really know how to manipulate the lights.
Testino took as his inspiration the work of classic photographers, including Cecil Beaton and Richard Avedon.
Mario, for a long time, was really emulating other people. And that doesn't wash as a fashion photographer, because you're recognized by your pictures, not by your name.
When you touch something that you don't know, you touch it really carefully. You know, if I don't know whether this is going to break, then I'll do it really carefully and put it down. And I guess I treated women in images like that. I didn't want to go too far away, so I just created something and told the people, don't move, and don't move anything, and hold it there, and don't breathe, and don't show me any life, or, you know. Because I was really just looking at it from somebody that doesn't know what to do with it. It wasn't really my thing. I hadn't been raised with it, I didn't really know it, but I admired it.
As a fashion photographer, you establish your woman when you're completely confident about how somebody should be and how they should look. Then your photographs take on the unique quality that identifies them as yours.
When I went knocking at the doors of the French magazines, I came across the star director at Marie Claire, and he said to me, "They're nice, your pictures, but she's a society lady, the next day she's a punk, the next day she's..." So, who's your woman?
he sees me sexier than other people. You know, everyone kind of shot me as like the waif before Mario started taking pictures of me, and then he kind of was like, no, but you're so sexy. And you know, he saw me differently than other people did. We have done so many pictures together and so many different kind of fashions and, you know, all different kinds of looks. I think he's taken some of the best pictures of me. He's more like hot, kind of. It's like that South American thing, I suppose. It's a lot to do with sex, I think.
Amazing, amazing, get excited. Oh, yes.
Tactful cactus by a window surveys the prairie of your room.
The moment that the world really sort of clicked on was when he went back to his roots, effectively.
For years I tried to emulate the English. When I moved to England, I was so impressed by them, by Beaton, by that whole world. And all of a sudden I realized that I'm not English, I'm South American, and I wasn't trained the way the English are, you know. I never wore second-hand clothes, we buy the latest things. And I think you have to come to terms with that, and once you do, then it all makes more sense and it all becomes easier and it just flows easier.
Testino was born in Lima in Peru in 1954. His family belonged to the upper middle class, and the Testinos were strict Catholics.
Me domina y me tiene desesperado. Tú me tienes tan embrujado con tu caricia, me tienes tan consentido y enamorado. Cuando salgo todo corriendo, todo esa prisa, porque quiero en todo momento estar a tu lado. Pero por nada del mundo me quites la inspiración.
Well, this is the school I used to go to since I was 5. Between 5 and 10, I came to school here. This was my first classroom ever, kindergarten A. And they used to have a marker that it was our dreaded thing, because when you wouldn't behave, they would come and bang it on the desk. My biggest memory of this classroom is a horrible thing, is that some of the kids, they were nervous to ask permission to go to the bathroom, so they would poo in their pants, and the nun would come and smell to see who had done it, because they didn't dare say who it was, and that was my big... It was so, even if you hadn't done it, you were nervous, I think. You know, my thing has always been to be naughty in a private, discreet way. I believe that, well, I don't know, it's so easy to be good in front of everybody else. Christus vinci, Christus reina, Christus, Christus Deo. I used to be a choir boy here, believe it or not, and this is where we sang at the top, and we used to dress in red cloaks with white, you know, frilly things on top. And also I was an acolyte for a while. You know, it's horrible to say, but I quite liked the whole paraphernalia of it, that you know, the whole aesthetics of it. I was obsessed by it, you know. When I had my first Holy Communion, it was the Cardinal of Peru that came to give it to us. And we were all like amazed by his outfits, you know, because they dress in purple from head to toe, and they bring a lot of other priests with them. So I think the whole thing was quite impressive. And I guess that sort of dressing, I don't know, that fantasy in a way, you know, that you're taught like these people that you cannot really reach. They're part of a special group of people. So I love the smell, the incense, because we used to carry the incense and move it around, you know, for it to spread out. I love that. I think that the church has influenced a lot my work, because I was quite obsessed by it. Churches, in the paintings, you'll see there are candles that are incredible, full of color, you know. And so I guess I've had a lot of influence from that. Somewhere in my mind, I thought I would be a priest one day. It's a pity that I've become such a sinner.
A la rumba sur vamos. Llega chique 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 ay mi corazón. Ay ay ay
He has something very Peruvian, and that is, I think, one of Mario's greatest assets, that he has never forgotten where he comes from. I wouldn't know how to pin it down, but there is something that has to do with us that I can see in his pictures. I mean, even the sensuality of it all, no? I think he does have a lot of Peru in him, always.
Mario's woman, his ideal woman, actually were the women that he met in South America when he grew up. I remember a friend of his who used to go out for a swim, but she would have earrings, sunglasses, and a turban, and just walk out into the water as far as she needed to, turn around, come back, impeccable. And I think that kind of style is unforgettable for Mario.
I feel very proud that Mario is where he is and that I was his first model. I mean, I feel
she was my inspiration.
wonderful.
She was completely my inspiration. And she was very beautiful as she is today, so I photographed her for everything. It's amazing that you have all the pictures, no?
So I mean, it's a very Peruvian.
It's like my,
very Peruvian.
my photo album almost.
But my favorite, I'll show you my favorite. I mean, I love this one.
And I knew nothing about photography at all. I don't know, I just knew she was beautiful, so I just tried to capture her beauty.
When I was 15, I met Mario, and I couldn't believe Mario. He was the greatest guy I had met. He was so full of life. He always had the best ideas. For a young girl like me when I was 15, 16, he was amazing. I fell in love with him deeply. And he used to like me a lot, actually. And we dated for a while.
Peru is a country of extremes, you know. You can see it in its architecture, in its clothing. Another thing that has very much influenced me in Peru is the variety of dance and the variety of costumes. Every region has a different way of dressing, a different way of dancing, a different way of... the colors are different. When I was 14, we used to go to parties, and all our parties were with orchestras at the time, and it was just an understood thing that you were supposed to know how to dance every single different dance. We have merengue, cumbia, salsa. We would learn to dance. And all these things have influenced my work. You know, when you see that I'm always my pictures, I like to create moments rather than static moments. I like life, you know? And I create all that following all these things that I guess must have influenced me a lot in my youth. And I don't know, I think it's in our blood, dancing, music, moving, the whole idea of energy. Elegance is a big part of our culture. Here in Peru especially, from early age we're trained to try and look as best we can, and dress is a very, very important thing about it. We have these horses, they're called el caballo de paso, and they dance as they walk. I mean, it's a little bit like dressage. I like glamour and I like elegance and I like beauty, and I think it probably comes from this. When you see Carmen in her horse, she looks fascinating. And I guess it all has to do with the fact that I've always been quite obsessed by clothes. I think it's the most basic form of expression that the human being has, you know, where you put your artistic touch.
He has an incredible sense of fashion history. He knows which designers did what at which period. Mario knows every fashion photographer, what their style was, when they were shooting, what they were shooting. So he has this great sense of history. When he sees beautiful clothes, he knows what to do with them.
You'd be surprised how many of the people that we work with really have no interest in clothes and what's going on in fashion today. And Mario loves that world. I mean, he loves to go to a fashion show. He loves models. He loves designers. So he's very comfortable in that world.
But Testino's inspiration for his love of fashion still really stems from just one woman.
My mother, when we were growing up, she was obsessed with beauty. You know, we would be in the car going somewhere, and she would always comment on, my God, how can she wear that bag with those shoes? Or how can she wear that dress? Or the length at her age, how can she wear that length? You know, so you become obsessed with these things. And she's the one that sort of allowed me and pushed me to dress.
Bueno, al comienzo se vestía así en forma muy estrafalaria para nosotros. Nos llamaba la atención. Pero en vista de que eso es lo que él quería, su papá optó por comprarle siempre ya pues las cosas en los colores que él quería, la moda que a él le gustaba. Lo dejamos en libertad. Y se compraba todo lo que quería hasta que su papá se asustó y le quitó la tarjeta.
Mario was obsessed by clothes. Mario had a tailor for him, literally. Literally, was a very, very small tailor, and Mario was really tall since he was born, I guess. And the tailor used to have to climb into a stool to measure him. Every week he would make clothes from all sorts of material, the most wild colors. And in Peru, it's a very conservative third world country. It's a beautiful country, but nevertheless, the parameters are very well set. He broke every single parameter. Super high heels. Also the time, no? I'm talking 70s, you know, high platforms and pink pants, and, you know, it was just out there.
Growing up in Peru was quite awkward. Not the childhood was incredible. Adolescence, just because I would go out into the streets and people would scream at me. So, you know, from early age, I had to use my whole allowance in taxis. I traveled by taxi from really early on. And I had no money left, but it was the only possible way to do it. So, in that way, Peru was tricky. People wanted to fit into society and the rules of society. And if you're slightly different, people just reject you.
But in Brazil, Testino found the exuberance and hedonism he craved.
It's an incredible place, the people are beautiful, the beach is incredible, they're all friendly, they love party, they dance, you know, and they're beautiful, which is my obsession, beauty. I love to push the volume, you know, I like to delve into areas where we're not supposed to delve into, and you know, sex is a big thing in our lives, and in South America, you can imagine we're hot and randy like mad. I did a story for Brazilian Vogue when I was in Brazil on the socialites, and I had all these guys dressed in black ties, and I took this picture of half of them in their bathing suits and the other half in tuxedos, and I thought it so exemplifies Brazil for me, because there is that sense that you can be at a party fully dressed and there's a pool or the sea in front, and everybody decides, let's go swimming, and everybody just takes their clothes off, and they all have their bathing suits on a 24-hour basis, so, you know, there's no underwear. It's a very bad business in Brazil. I always look, you know, wherever I go I look, be it here, Belgium, Amsterdam, wherever I go I look, because it's always important to look, especially in Brazil where it's just full of beautiful people. I find so many of my models here. Very beautiful. They have amazing teeth, no? Look at the teeth. I like people that are not afraid, you know, people that are confident about themselves. I like ambiguity. I like, you know, men that are a bit men, a bit women, and women that are a bit women, a bit men. I don't like a girl that goes, eee, and I don't like a guy that comes, ooh, like a gorilla.
He'll sing, he'll dance, he'll flirt with everybody, male or female. He enjoys being a little bit ambiguous about his sexuality.
For me, really, there is no beauty outside without the one inside, because I have to live with them, so they have to have the personality. And it's like this I find so many people. Like this I found Giselle and many, many models.
As well as embracing sex and beauty, Testino's photographs are also undeniably about the look of money.
What Mario does is actually create a fantasy world where everyone is glamorous and everything is chic and everyone is rich, and you know, and that's a lot about what fashion is about, is creating this sort of mythical, idealized world that you want to be a part of and you want to buy into, and Mario's terrific at that.
If you think of Testino, you think of the woman first, a sexiness and a sense of allure. You want to be that woman in that glorious house or on that glorious beach in that incredible dress. He sells a dream.
The Mario world enjoys and uses up money in vast quantities. Money doesn't seem to be necessary, but it's somehow available. It looks as though if you needed a helicopter, it would just simply come straight over the horizon.
The Testino look finally took off commercially in the late 1990s. He shot grunge out of the window.
Mario was that jet-set Euro woman who at the time was incredibly unfashionable. We were all wearing sneakers and skirts to our ankles and looking drippy. And there came Mario, and suddenly we wanted to be sexy. Mario made it acceptable suddenly to wear high heels, wear a logoed handbag. I mean, he has made us sexy and aspirational.
I use a lot of flash sometimes just because I think it relates a lot to my life. I like that lifestyle, you know, boats and parties and airplanes, and some people say I'm a bit superficial. Maybe I am. I'm a fashion photographer par excellence, and that is our job. I think that photographers sometimes forget that we are not meant to be artists to hang our work in a wall. We're supposed to drive people to buy. We're commercial artists.
But now Testino is about to hang his work on a wall, and no ordinary wall. He's staging a landmark exhibition inside that bastion of high art, London's National Portrait Gallery.
There is a fundamental difference between photography for advertising and photography that hangs in an art gallery, and that is that the purpose, above all, for a piece of photography for advertising is to sell merchandise, to sell an idea. And I like to think, although maybe it's not true, that true art photography is about something deeper and something more profound. I think that occasionally you can have crossovers and that things can be both, but I think it's a little bit hard.
Okay, put the song they want, because this is not it.
I don't think he's one of these fashion photographers who's tortured by the idea that they're prostituting their talents and that they should be doing more meaningful things. I think he's capable of producing things that have great artistry to them, but I don't think he's self-consciously striving to be an art photographer.
Okay, let's see it.
Y'all can stop me now. Listen to me now.
Okay, concentrate.
And if you want me, then come on, get me now.
Fashion photography is this uneasy mix of art and commerce, and I think nobody understands that better than Mario.
I want teeth. I think teeth are good. Show that you can. Wow, you look incredible with teeth. Okay, do your rip. Fashion photography is about immediacy. You're supposed to entice people at that moment to get up and go to a shop, but you also have to give them the feeling that they have to throw that magazine away, because you have to create the desire to buy the following month. You have to make it, you know, a mixture of I want it and I'm tired of it and I want another one. That's it, beautiful, yes.
It's maybe not necessarily about the singular image, and Mario would be the first to say that. You know, he doesn't propose himself in that way. And at the National Portrait Gallery, the walls are going to be filled with images, and it's the whole thing.
Beautiful there when you're all smiling. Work it, girls, work it. It's not a holiday.
Let me know. Got the feeling, son. Let me throw you some. People, here I come. Now sweat me when I'm done.
Fashion photographers tend to look at the art world with, you know, admiring eyes, because it is a freer environment, you know, in the sense that you really can do whatever you want in the art world. While in fashion, we always have to be selling clothes, making the girls look beautiful, and they become our limits. So to get that reaction from the art world, for me, it's a real compliment, you know. It's like these people that are there with all their freedom, with all their creativity, think that maybe things that I do have that validity or that same quality. It's really flattering. I love the shoes.
The shoes are wonderful.
But now the moment of truth. Testino must choose which pictures are in and which are out. He must also decide where fashion ends and portraiture begins.
But look, I love this and this as well. Classic. I like this idea of portraiture seen in a new way today, because I think that whilst portraiture used to be quite a static thing, portraiture has become a very alive thing. No, I guess that's a thing of our times, that we think of portraits in a more looser way. It's really quite hard defining what is a fashion photograph as a portrait.
There's a difference between doing fashion, obviously, and portraiture. I think that he mixes the two. Like sometimes when he does portraits of celebrities, it has a fashion take on it. There's a certain stylishness to it and a certain posing.
We look through the walls of the National Portrait Gallery, and what will we find? Queen Elizabeth I in her magnificent, very elaborate costume, pinpointing a moment in fashion as well as, British state history. You cannot avoid in any kind of portraiture representing both the person and somehow a flavour of the time.
he's never going to divorce a celebrity from how he wants her to be portrayed. So I think there is a real blurring of the edges and a merging, and that's why there isn't fashion portraiture. His fashion pictures are portraits, and his portraits often look fantastic fashion pictures.
But it's interesting that it's the frontier between the two.
Well, it's the idea of classic portraiture being put into fashion, and also at the same time it's how portraiture has become looser than what it used to be.
In the exhibition, the first room is an attempt to show where Mario the fashion photographer and Mario the portrait photographer meet and cross over. So there are fashion pictures which are done in the studio for a fashion magazine, but yet there's something about the regard, the way the person, the model, is looking at Mario that expresses something more than a fashion statement. It becomes about that person, and therefore the fashion picture becomes something of a portrait.
The exhibition has pushed Testino to new limits, and a photo session with a decidedly unlikely Testino sitter.
I think it was a challenge for Mario because always I think as a photographer, and this is true of any photographer, they want to get something that nobody else has got. So I think the picture with the chickens, was a nice side of, to see Prince Charles doing something very natural. But I think Prince Charles felt confident enough that, Mario wouldn't make a fool of him or show him in a sort of peculiar light. And so the combination is irresistible.
The ones of Prince Charles in the studio were stiff, weren't they? They didn't work, so... But the out-of-door pictures, it had that Mario Testino informality. Prince Charles seemed terribly relaxed, completely at ease with him. And I thought that really worked. I found the more formal portrait a lot less interesting.
If I accepted to photograph him, it's because in a way I think he's a good-looking man. Because if not, I don't think I could make him look good-looking. You can't do miracles. You can bring it out in people, but you can't change their physique, And then, I don't know, I think that already being a prince does make you more good-looking than what you maybe are, anyhow.
So now Prince Charles joins the ranks of Testino's global glitterati.
Wish everybody would leave me alone, yeah. They're always calling on my telephone. When I pick it up, there's no one there. So
But does Testino feel out of place in the National Portrait Gallery?
I'm so excited about it that I wake up at night 10 times during the night just wondering, is it 9 o'clock so I can be in here?
Mario's quite easy to read, and you can't deny the pride when he tells people, I'm doing the National Portrait Gallery. It really fluffed him up.
It's funny, you sometimes can get a grasp of your excitement because you're so anxious about whether it's good or not good or whether it's going to work or not. The anxiety comes from the fact that until we know that it works and that people like it, everybody's anxious. I guess the National Portrait Gallery must be pretty anxious that, they've committed to something and that they don't really know what the result is.
I think he will be considered one of the great photographers of the last 50 years.
I think it's easy to be seduced by the sort of superficial glamour of it. Whether that will stay the course is hard to tell. There's the risk with somebody like Mario Testino that he creates this party atmosphere, but the following morning the balloons might look a bit limp and the empty glasses all look rather sad and disappointing. So will the work stay the course? Time will tell.
We're supposed to be the biggest judges of ourselves, but I have to say I think it looks For my taste, anyhow. Maybe everybody else won't like it, but I adore it. I think it's great. I still go to the studio in the morning, and whatever I've achieved here doesn't really give me the security or the assurance for what I'm going to do tomorrow. When I get there in the morning and I'm lost and I don't know where to go, how to find a new light, how to find a new expression, a new movement, that's something that makes it new, I can't say to myself, oh, well, you have the National Portrait Gallery and then you're great, because it doesn't solve the problem. As far as achievements go, I'm in a business where you're as good as your last thing.
There's always a photographer of the moment, and I think Mario's been the photographer of the moment for quite a while now.
That's quite beautiful, too.
Photographers like Mario, they start off, they have to work hard every day, knowing that they have to get better. And then when they do become great, they can never let off. The second you start coasting, it's going to be over. And if you want to have a long career, as I expect he will continue to have, the stakes get higher every day. It becomes a farther place to drop from.
God, I'm tired.
I think he'll stay successful as long as he chooses to. He loves what he does. He also adores his fame. I mean, he's not shy about it. He loves being the star that he is. So I can't imagine that at the relatively young age that he is, that he's going to walk away from that right now, because he's just having so far too good a time.
He's a compulsive obsessive. If he were to stop, it might all implode. And so he just keeps on going and going and going.
Wow, incredible.